The question is how a young guy ends up in Wageningen from Amsterdam, to study organic agriculture and fair trade. So
Yes.
what was your in your mind at that time?
Right. Yeah, it's very unusual because people in Amsterdam believe that the universe revolves around Amsterdam, and I had no idea about Wageningen until I went to India. So I went to India when I was 18, straight out of high school, and then I learned about the relevance of agriculture and the importance of agriculture, as well as the complexities of rural development. So I was in Rajasthan, where there are very big gender issues, men and women, the exploitation and the discrimination of women is huge. And then there are caste issues,
Yeah.
and then there is a whole range of complexity, both in terms of water and land and social economic issues. So I realized that this is a situation that if I want to do something meaningful, I need to have a lot more knowledge about these systems and how they work. So that's what brought me to Wageningen. It's a very international place. It has a kind of a cosmopolitan perspective, and yet it's very grounded. Its food is finally needs to be brought to the table, and there's also an opportunity to connect with nature. Not that it always happens, but a lot of agriculturalists are very anthropocentric, and they believe that they can control nature and create food independently. But there are enough people here that do stay connected to the soil and whatnot, and it not just, I think, what we study, but also how we live. So when I was in Wageningen, we lived in Droevendaal, where we met yesterday, and that was the first time that I actually lived in a place where we could grow some of our own food, and we had animals, and we learned how to slaughter chickens, and very hands-on upbringing or education. And I remember, why agriculture? So when I was in high school and we were thinking about, what do you want to be when you grow up, I thought of becoming a doctor. Most of my friends are doctors, lawyers, and so forth. And then I was like, but if you're a doctor, you cure people, and then they get sick again if the rest of their environment is not healthy. So why don't I work on the basic of health, which is healthy food, which comes from a healthy soil. So this was a little abstract reasoning because I had no experience. Then I went to India to test this assumption.
To put it together in your mind when you are 18, it's quite impressive, I think. For me, it took a while when I figured out how important food is, but kudos, it's nice. It has been already 15 years since you graduated from Wageningen. I guess it's not the first time when you got back to visit. Do you see any changes and you have any insights how Wageningen changed since you were a student here? What you want to share?
It's difficult to say really, because I haven't, except yesterday we did this event in Droevendaal. Droevendaal seems very similar to when I was there. I haven't been in any of the institutional areas or classrooms or whatnot. I just see lots of new buildings, and I got lost. And so in that sense, the artifacts have changed. But I mean, I spoke a little bit with some friends who are working at the academic side of things, and they basically mentioned about the rat race of publications in specific journals, which have very little to do with the advancement of knowledge and have a lot to do with academic politics. I was also very involved in academic politics when I was here, so that seems to also be the same. But I think what's positive is that there seems to be still very internationally oriented culture, and especially so I just came overland from India through Iran, Turkey, Hungary, etc., and I think this kind of cross-pollination between cultures is extremely important, and we tend to take it for granted. And it's great to see that it's the norm. You know, here it doesn't really matter where you come from. It's kind of expected that you are from somewhere else, and you bring a complementary perspective.
And because everybody has their own story, their own way of agriculture, or own way of seeing food, and it should be somehow put together somewhere to have some bigger picture where everybody has their own truths and own rights. So, but you kind of already answered the second question. Why did you go to India? So you had already a fascination towards India when you were a teenager.
Yes.
So, and after, or maybe during Wageningen, you went back a couple of times, or?
Well, actually, I went to India before I came to Wageningen. And that really planted a very strong seed. I think it's common. You see also among students in Wageningen, the first faraway country they go to, they have a very special connection. So for some it's in Latin America, some Africa, and for me it was Asia or India. And when you're 18 and you go to a completely different world where you have to completely reinvent yourself, it's a transformative experience. So for me, it's part of my identity. I speak Hindi, and I'm still very kind of subconsciously looking for being accepted in India as a country.
As a local.
Yes, as a local, exactly. And it's something that is like a natural impulse. No? If you go as a foreigner to a new area, you try to blend in, and you don't want to be the other. You want to be from there and accepted as indigenous. I still have that strong connection. I don't know whether it's really about India. I can't. I had only one life, so it happened to be India where I went when I was 18. If it might have been Cuba, I might have been in there. But I think this is the reason why I went back. Then later, all kinds of other reasons came. So my wife actually really wanted to go to Latin America. And when we first went to India 15 years ago, we had a kind of deal. We said, fine, whoever gets the first contract will go to that continent, and then we'll swap. The next job will be in the other continent. And 15 years later, we're still in India. But halfway, we did go to Brazil to see, maybe we could also live here. And then one of the reasons why we didn't stay there is because we realized that there's so much work to be done in India. It's just huge. Everything about it is huge. The problems are huge. The opportunities for solutions are huge. And we felt that was different in Brazil. Like if they were talking about a small-scale farmer, it was still a farmer who had like 2 hectares of land. Talk about a small-scale farmer in India, it's like 0.5 acres of land. So there's this every day, there's this sense of urgency of doing something relevant in India, and I think it's exciting. It's one of the things that keep us there.